But he was practical in the way that people are not. He knew how to produce social transformation. And he did that by inventing a system, I call it the Paulo Freire system, and he himself and the group of early collaborators in a famous journal of 1963 that was published in the University of Recife at the time, now the University of Pernambuco, call it the Paulo Freire system. What is this? This was a system of bringing people back into school access, but also letting them move on parallel levels, non-formal, informal, formal education, until they reach a pinnacle, which will be the university. But this university already begins to show some of the elements of global citizenship. Now, here we have this provincial individual that probably would never have been so well known if he would not have been kicked out of his own country by the dictatorship.
Right.
And then he became this larger than history figure, and actually he deserved that. Not only because he was a genius of the 20th century, but because his ability to capture the collective imagination of people and the way he will connect the writings of others, from Bergson to Freud, and then the parallels with Gramsci were tremendous.
Yes.
All of those things made him a top of the line intellectual, very close to what I consider foundational on his work, which is the critical theory a la Frankfurt.
Right.
Although he may not have been a follower of Adorno or Horkheimer, he was very much into looking at Marcuse, looking at some question of Erich Fromm, etc.
Right.
In short, I think he moved from being the local to be the global, and in that dialogue between the global and the local, he himself became a global figure on what he called himself a pilgrim of the obvious, and being the obvious that oppression and oppressors and oppressed exist in other parts of the world. But let me add one more point, which I developed slightly in my keynote as ending my presidency in the World Council of Comparative Education Society, and it was published in 6 languages online. But the point we have in Latin America is a liberal tradition.
Right.
This liberal tradition comes from the moment of independence, around 1810, more or less. This liberal tradition left a great group of intellectuals, particularly in Argentina, to think that education was a solution very much into the spirit of the Enlightenment to tame human nature.
Right.
And there was this individual, Sarmiento, a very controversial man, self-made man, somebody who was autodidact, that created the concept of popular education and then applied to public education.
Right.
Sarmiento put this as a precondition for citizenship. So education and citizenship were immediately connected, and this is the typical model of the scientifically connected with the tradition of positivism, politically connected with the tradition of empiricism, and particularly liberalism. But Sarmiento was also a comparativist.